Baja, the waters are emerald green and the skies are clear. But certain neighborhoods can get a bit noisy. Join us as we paddle the waters of the Sea of Cortez on Trailside. This is the island in the sky. And down there, it's the open desert, laced with old Indian trails and abandoned mining roads. If you want to tread lightly on this land and experience this rugged country, the best vehicle is a mountain bike. Hi, I'm John Viehman. Join me as we ride the White Rim Trail and make our own adventure on Trailside.
Funding for Trailside is made possible in part by Chevy Trucks, who reminds you that it's possible to have fun outdoors and still leave Mother Nature with a smile on her face, too. And LL Bean, providing sporting gear and apparel for people who love the outdoors for over 80 years. And High Tech Sports, who invite you to enjoy the great outdoors and follow the trail to adventure.
We're in Moab, Utah. Scratch a little below the surface and you'll find a history rich in Western lore. Anasazi villages, notorious outlaws, and tons of uranium. In the middle of the Colorado Plateau and surrounded by millions of acres of public land, Moab has become a mecca for desert lovers. These days, a lot of them are on mountain bikes, and one of their favorite stops is Canyonlands National Park.
There you go, John.
Thanks, Lou. While most people spend their 40 hours a week in an office, Lou Warner spends his on the trail. He not only races mountain bikes, but he also guides trips for his company, Western Spirit Cycling. Hey, Lou, I've heard that mountain bikers are so weight conscious that they actually cut the handles off their toothbrushes. Is that true?
Well, John, most of the mountain bikers I know don't even use toothbrushes.
No.
But seriously on it, I don't see any reason to get that carried away. We're in the desert, it's a mild climate, and we don't have to carry a lot of excess baggage with us.
Okay. Now what about water? Do we have enough for the day?
Well, it's kind of cool today, so I think these 3 large water bottles that we have ought to be plenty, but we're hotter out, we might want to carry up to 2 gallons of water per person per day on a trip like this.
That much, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well now, loading these panniers, do we have to do anything special here as far as weight distribution goes?
Well, only if you want to go in a straight line.
Okay.
Assuming that you do, you want to balance your weight equally between the left and right panniers.
Okay.
In fact, let me grab this map here and let's go over and take a look at where we're going to be riding today.
Okay, great.
Here's where we got to look at the White Rim Trail, John.
Uh-huh.
It's a 100-mile ride through the park.
Whoa.
Off to your right over here, you can see the top of the trail. This is what they call the Schaefer Trail.
Uh-huh. Look at that. Those are some gnarly turns down there, Lou.
Yeah, they sure are. It's actually amazing there's even a road down here through this vertical Wingate sandstone here. This was an old Indian trail that then became a cattle trail that was turned into a uranium mining trail, and now the road is just kind of left as an access through the park.
Let's take a look.
Well, we're going to ride down the Schaefer Trail right up here, and we'll hit the White Rim down right here by the Goosenecks Trail, and then we'll follow it all the way down to our camp by the river in Lathrop Canyon.
Okay. Are you heading right down here?
Yeah, you can see the White Rim out there, actually.
Uh-huh. You're talking about right here.
Yeah, that white layer of rock down there, it really stands out quite well. It's old, at one time it was an offshore sandbar, and that's why it's so white in colors. It's basically just pure beach sand that's been solidified by overlying layers.
So what you're looking there, that whole cutaway is like hundreds of millions of years of time?
Hundreds of millions of years. At one time, there were probably another 6,000 to 8,000 feet of sediment on top of what you can see here now. So
wow.
You can see why they call it Canyonlands.
Oh yeah, well let's get down there. Looks like we're headed into that gnarly part, Lou.
Yeah, John, this will give us a good chance to practice some of those downhill skills we've been discussing a little bit.
Okay.
A couple things that you might want to consider as you're going down here are your brakes.
Okay.
Your front brake has 70% of your stopping power.
Okay.
Your rear brake has the rest.
All
You want to
right.
be really careful not to use too much front brake or you'll lock up the front wheel and that can lead to certain disaster.
Okay.
So you want to use your brakes together
All
a
right.
little bit.
And feather them or pump them a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you know, you kind of have to develop a feel for it as you go down, particularly with this much weight in the back. But yeah, you want to feather them a little bit, and you don't want to skid. We have a saying down here: "Skids are for squids." And you know, if you skid, you're just out of control, and it's not a really good thing to do. So.
Okay. Now, what about weight distribution on the rest of the bike? How should
Well,
you
you want to think about keeping your weight, your center of gravity, a little bit behind the center of the bike as you're descending. The steeper the hill gets, the further back you might want to come.
So sometimes you even be behind the seat, even.
Yeah, and like we have the Slick Rock Trail down here in Moab, and on the really steep stuff there, you have to get your weight way behind the saddle. But I don't think we'll have to get that carried away here.
Okay.
A couple other things you might want to consider as we're going down. It's really important to have your cranks horizontal,
Okay.
like these are. If you have a pedal down low, it might hit a rock and upset you.
Okay.
So, and then you want to stand. It really helps if you get your butt off the saddle going down rough terrain like this. And you can actually squeeze the saddle a little bit between your thighs
Okay.
to connect you to the bike. And bend your knees and elbows a little bit and try to keep a fairly loose grip on the bars. You don't want to let go of the bars, but you don't want to squeeze them too tight. And basically, you're just a shock absorber and you're trying to smooth things out.
Okay. Ready to do it?
You bet.
Boy, this trail surface is getting a little rough, Lou.
Yeah, I think you'll find that it smooths out a little as we get down onto the white rim layer, John. Don't be afraid to let the bike bounce around a little bit. You know, just keep your weight centered over it and the bike can bounce, and just relax a little bit and you ought to be fine. You know, one thing that might help a little is if you bend your elbows just a little and loosen up your grips on the bars and just kind of let them bounce around in your hand there.
Okay.
We'll take the edge off some of the bumps for you.
Oh, yeah, it feels a lot better.
Cool.
Really absorb all the shock right in your legs then, huh?
Yeah, you can take a lot of it there. You know, we should really keep our eyes open because I've been seeing quite a few bighorn sheep in this area.
Lou, you keep your eyes open. I'm going to keep them on the road, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Now, is this formation an arch or a bridge?
Well, this is an arch, and the difference between an arch and a bridge is arches are formed by wind as the predominant erosional agent, and bridges are formed mostly by water.
So there's no chance this is going to erode underneath us, is there?
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, John. Maybe we ought to just keep walking.
Okay, we'll keep moving along. And over here you can see some real good erosion going on, isn't there?
Yeah, actually, the processes out here of erosion are quite visible. You can see underneath the white rim the chocolate brown stone that we call the Cutler Formation is much softer than the white rim, and wind and water erodes the Cutler, which undermines the white rim, and eventually the white rim falls off into big blocks, just like it is here.
It's crumbling everywhere, you know. It seems so indestructible, yet, you know, it's so fragile, isn't it? There's a little bit of hesitation when I'm using this rear derailleur, Lou. I think I'm going to adjust that just a bit. Boy, those new cables have a lot of stretch in them, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do, John, but usually after a couple initial adjustments, they'll last quite a while.
I've noticed you've been spinning a lot faster than I am, Lou. Is there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, actually it's a lot more efficient on your knees and aerobically to spin faster. One thing you should try to achieve is a cadence of about 70 to 90 beats per minute.
Okay. Yeah, that feels a lot better now.
All right, good. The only exception to that is occasionally you want to stand up and get out of the saddle a little bit, in which case you'll drop a gear and slow your cadence down a little bit, and that helps get you up off the saddle and stretch the back of your legs a little bit.
Looks like we've got a hill ahead, Lou.
Yeah, we do. One of the most important things about mountain biking is to anticipate upcoming changes in terrain and shift before it's too late.
Boy, with 21 gears, this is a hill my grandmother probably could get up.
Well, not unless she's a lot more fit than we are, John.
Yeah. You know, come to think of it, Lou, my grandmother would have drove her Oldsmobile up this thing. Some serious climbing here.
I knew I hit that rock pretty hard.
Oh, Lou, too bad. Should have followed the same line I took down that hill.
Yeah, I probably should have, John. I guess I got a little carried away back there, but you know how it is. Once in a while, you just start having a little too much fun. I think what I did is I hit that rock pretty hard, and I probably got what's called a pinch flat, and that means I actually compressed the rim all the way onto the tube. And so I probably have 2 holes in this tube. But just in case there's a thorn in there, maybe you could check that while I get my other tube out.
Okay.
Rather than patch this one, I think I'll just put in a new one and patch that when I get to camp. So
Get all the sand out of here and...
yeah, I'll try to get most of it out of there anyway. Make sure there's no thorns in there. Good thing to remember when you're changing a flat is to put a little bit of air in your tube before you reinsert it in the rim here. So, okay, so there's nothing in there. You felt around with your hands pretty good, and
Feels good to me.
okay, great. Now a lot of people use a tire lever to put their tires back on, which is just a little device that you can hook under the rim here that helps you. But typically most mountain bikes, you know, the tires fit loose enough where you can just pop it in with your hand, just like that. So, so there you go. I think I'll go over here and lean this against your bike and pump it up a little bit. So.
Boy, Lou, these mountain bikes sure take a lot of abuse, don't they?
Yeah, they sure have come a long way over the years, though, John. I bought my first bike about 7 or 8 years ago. It weighed about 10 pounds more than this, yet I'm sure this one's considerably stronger.
It looks like it's a lot faster, too, Lou.
Well, that depends on the rider, John.
Well, before I came out here, I made an important stop at Rim Cyclery, the most notorious bike shop in the West. What do you get when a mining engineer and a pilot go into business together? Mountain biking. Robin and Bill Groff started Rim Cyclery in 1982, when mountain biking was a radical idea. Hi, Robin.
Hi, John.
What do you have in your hand here?
Oh, I just got through building a wheel. I hear you want to talk about bicycles.
Sure do.
Well, let's go in the back. Here, John, let me hang this up and we'll look at the bikes.
Robin, where did the first mountain bike come from?
Well, it started out in the 80s when some California guys couldn't get around in the Colorado Rockies, and so they went back and built some bikes that could get around in the Rockies.
The standard touring bike just couldn't take those hills, huh?
Well, as you can see, the tire difference, that was one of the main things, is they wanted to go with the wide tires for off-road use with the knobbies as compared to the narrow tires.
Sure.
And the other thing was the braking systems. As you can see, on a road bike, you've got a caliper brake with a single pivot point. And on a mountain bike, you have these brazed on to the actual frame brakes called cantilevers, and they give you increased stopping power, and that was a big thing in the industry.
And those downhills, I'll bet it is. Now, what's this? Is a big shock absorber here in the front?
Yeah, it's relatively new to the industry. It's designed on a motorcycle shock type of fare, and it gives you travel. You're able to go over bumpier stuff, and it saves your hands from, you know, getting arthritic and stuff.
Now, the handlebar system is different, too.
Well, on a classic road bike, you have the swoop down and the lower part of the bars, the upper part of the bars. Where on a mountain bike, you have a slightly wider bar that's flat. You get better leverage off-road, and it allows you to climb a little better.
Now, the gearing on these bikes, the mountain bike has a lot more gears than the touring bike does?
Well, usually on a mountain bike, yes, they'll have a third chain wheel on the inside, a smaller ring here that allows you to climb steeper hills.
Okay.
Gives you quite low gearing as compared to just the double on a road bike.
I mean, what can they have? As many as, like, what, 10, 15
Oh,
gears?
most of them now have 21 and can have 24.
Jeez.
So it gets to be... You want to see if this one fits you?
Sure, let's try it.
Well, first, why don't you just stand over it, John, and
Okay.
we'll see how much room you've got now. If you'll pull it up, yeah. Now, what we'd usually like to have is about 3 inches or a fist to give you plenty of clearance when you're riding off-road. So this looks like about the right size.
Okay.
Why don't you sit up on there and we'll see if the saddle's at the right height. Now, if you'll just pedal backwards, John. Oh, that looks pretty good. Your legs almost extended and yet doesn't lock out. So that's a pretty good fit.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay.
This looks like a pretty broad land area being drained off here, Lou. Is there any danger of a flash flood coming through here?
Only if it rains, John. I've seen a lot of flash floods in this country, and in this particular canyon, I've seen 2 to 3 foot walls of water come rushing down.
Now, this looks like our road going into the canyon right over there. Is that it?
Yes, it is. We'll ride down here about 3.5 miles to our camp in Lathrop Canyon, right next to the river.
Boy, what a drop on that road, too. We're going to get a lot of opportunities to practice that downhill technique you were showing me.
Yes, we are. You just want to make sure that you keep the rubber side down.
Okay. Looks like we've got some real weather moving in here, Lou.
Hard telling not knowing. No. Anything could happen around here, John.
Yeah.
We only get about 7 to 9 inches of rain a year here, but sometimes it seems like you can get it all at once. Typically what'll happen though is the rain evaporates before it hits the ground and you get what's called virga.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty neat looking.
So you can be raining out on top of you and you don't even get wet, huh?
Yep, exactly.
Well, what do you think? Should we set the tent up?
Yeah, well, our permit says we should be in Site A, so that's anywhere in this area, and let's set it right here. This looks like a good spot.
Okay, why don't you take care of that? I'm gonna go get some water.
Okay.
The Colorado River carries a lot of sediment and pollutants from agriculture runoff. But if you let the water stand for a while and then use a good filter, it's perfectly safe and actually tastes pretty good. What's the problem?
Well, when we were coming down into the canyon, I hit a rock pretty hard with my rear wheel, and it looks like I knocked it out of true a little bit. It's not really that hard to do when you have a bunch of weight on the back of your bike, but I think I got that pretty squared away now. You know, while I'm at it, I think I ought to go look up at the front wheel.
What are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for a little side-to-side wobble in the rim. So if I hold the brake pad up close and use it as a gauge, you can see how, for instance, the rim's rubbing right here. So to pull it over to the other side, I want to tighten the spokes on that side and loosen them on the one close to me here.
Okay, well, good luck, Lou. While Lou's tuning up his bike, I'm going to go tune up my mountain bike skills. I asked Sara Ballantyne to do some riding with me. She's a veteran of the mountain bike race circuit, a former national champion, and 2-time winner of the World Cup. Hey, Sara, how you doing?
Hi, John. Doing great.
How was the ride in?
Oh, it was great. I just got a brand new, fully suspended bike.
I see. Look at this.
Yeah, this black spring here in combination with the hinge system helps keep the tire in contact with the ground so that it ends up to have a lot better traction.
Oh, yeah.
And it tracks a lot better.
Well, you ready to do some riding?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Watch out, John. She's a rad desert Betty.
Oh, okay. I'll keep my eye on her.
Oh.
What's the
Bummer.
secret on sand, Sarah?
Well, you got to remember to keep looking ahead, okay? And that's going to keep your forward momentum going. And sometimes that's going to require you to get a little bit, have to shift to an easier gear, okay, to keep that cadence up high.
Okay.
And if you still have problems, we can take a little bit of air out of your tire. Want to try that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's try that. Not too much. What this does is kind of allows your tires to float a little bit better in the sand instead of digging a big old trench.
Okay. Got it.
And the same, you know, it applies the same in mud and snow. By looking ahead, you keep your forward momentum going in the general direction that you want to go, and you don't want to do any abrupt changes, okay? Really want to finesse your bike. High cadence and stay balanced on the bike.
And stay seated, I guess, because that back wheel really spins out from under you, doesn't it?
Right, right. There you go. All right. Oh, looks like we got a really big steep hill here, so let's try to carry our momentum forwards. Plus, we want to get really psyched up for it too, so we can make it. And look ahead and pick the best line you can. Choose the right gear before we get on all the steep stuff. And stay seated so we can keep the best traction possible.
I missed
And
that one.
over something like that, you really want to throw your weight over the obstacle so that your rear wheel will follow.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get up here before I get back on. It's ridiculous right there.
Your attitude was wrong.
Looks like we've got another one, Sarah.
Yeah, John, this looks really similar to the last hill we climbed. Looking straight ahead, it looks like a little too loose to want to climb on the left, so I'd say the line would be straight up the middle.
Okay.
And you see that ledge there.
Yep. Those look familiar.
Yep. So you'll want to do probably exactly what you did back there, except make it over this time.
So that's bring your weight off the back wheel for a moment and then put it on the front.
Right, exactly. And then continue to look ahead, picking the best line as possible, but you want to remain seated and even tempo on the pedals, pulling up as much as you're pushing down to prevent any kind of skid out in your rear wheel.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
Okay, remember that attitude. And keep spinning. Look ahead there. Up and over. Real smooth, easy cadence. Looking ahead. Making it to the top.
See what you mean, Sarah. It really is all in the attitude, isn't it?
You're learning, John.
Oh, there goes that attitude again. Well, except for that last hill, I think I got the hang of it pretty well, Sarah. Thanks a lot for your help.
All right, you're
It's been
welcome.
great. I'm gonna head on back to camp.
Okay, see you later.
Okay. Time for dinner, but first we need to rehydrate our pasoli. We'll also need lots of water because everything else we've brought is dehydrated, nice and light. Well, the sediment is pretty well settled, and this filter will strain out the rest of it. It'll also take care of bacteria and other things you can't see. Oh, what do you got going there, Lou?
Oh, I'm gonna make a few tortillas for dinner tonight, John.
Want some water?
Sure. It doesn't taste too bad.
All right. It's pretty good. Well, the storm clouds rolled on past us, so I decided to sleep out under the stars. Tomorrow we'll be riding to Monument Basin. It's about 12 miles away. Lou says there's a pretty good chance we'll be seeing some bighorn sheep, and we're going to take a hike once we get there. So we'll see you next time on Trailside.
Funding for Trailside is made possible in part by Chevy Trucks, who reminds you that it's possible to have fun outdoors and still leave Mother Nature with a smile on her face, too. And LL Bean, providing sporting gear and apparel for people who love the outdoors for over 80 years. And High Tech Sports, who invite you to enjoy the great outdoors and follow the trail to adventure.
Guys, we're about ready to come in and block this thing out and do it.
Wouldn't mind doing one more.
You wouldn't mind doing another one?
Let's do the wild sound right now.
Do this wild track right here. And
Rolling.
You want me to be walking?
52, take 2.
All speed. Quiet, please. And action.
There you go, John.
Thanks, Lou. Doing the Trailside series, you quickly see that the landscape is as much a character as the people are on camera. And the Canyonlands was no exception. Once you've seen it up close, you never forget things like the brilliance of the sunset out there in the desert. The desert certainly isn't a colorless land by any stretch.
Jeff, if you could, when you first come up behind them, to avoid having to do a pan right and then a pan left, hold them in the frame longer and drift across with them still in the frame, and then push past them, and that begins your pan left. You know? Here they come.
Speed.
Action.
No shortage of potholes out here, Lou.
No, there's quite a few, and we should be careful where we step, John, because there are little organisms that live in these.
Okay, here they come. Ready? Action.
Here's where you can see where the trail comes down off the mesa.
Cut.
Putting together a show on mountain biking through the Canyonlands has its own special challenge, especially if you are that cameraman. Jeff Viehman was doing a lot of the filming for this show, riding in a chariot that was attached to a tandem bike. Other times we used a special lipstick lens that was actually mounted on the front wheel hub to bring home some of that feeling of what it's like to cross the terrain. Something else that you're probably noticing on Trailside, actually on every show of Trailside, is the sounds of our experience. It's no accident to hear our bikes or the wind rushing by or even a gentle rain, what the locals call virga in Canyonlands National Park. Sound is a big part of the outdoors, and you'll see our ace sound man, Michael Lonsdale, running alongside in many of these scenes. He's the guy with what they call the boom, which is a microphone suspended on the end of a long pole. Michael Lonsdale is also the practical joker on location. You know, there's one in every crowd. A day didn't start without a thorough check of your pack for stones and random gear that Michael added just as a gentle reminder of who we were traveling with.
Look at this. You can really see how the Colorado's carving its way through.
Yeah, you sure can. This sedimentary rock is actually pretty soft. And,
Geologically speaking, the river can cut a deep canyon like this in a relatively short amount of time. Now, how does the river level go on down here? Is this a normal level for the river?
well, it's hard to say what normal is.
In a place like Canyonlands National Park, you'd like to think that the only logistical problems would be in, say, getting bikes across the rugged terrain, or a rain, or even a sandstorm now and then. Who would have thought that we'd have to deal with a snowstorm in spring? On that final day, nature once again reminded us that you can't plan for everything, no matter how hard you try. A cup of hot coffee sure takes on greater meaning on a day like that one.
Lay on his hands so we see what it is.
Wow. Nice. It's real nice when you work for it.
The important thing is that we want you to feel real comfortable just knowing how easy it is if you do tip over to get out of the boat and then to get back in the boat.
Okay.
But pretty darn stable.
Okay.
So,
Tell me what I need to know.
to do the dunk test, first thing of course is that you're going to tip over. Once you're upside down, it's important to relax and not to panic.
Yeah.
And you can let us know that you are relaxed by tapping 2 or 3 times on the side of the boat.
Okay.
Then just lean forward, reach the loop here on the spray skirt,
Yep.
and release it. And then you'll just kind of naturally tumble out of the boat and come to the surface. And then we'll do a rescue and get you back in.
Okay.
Piece of cake.
Once you hold on to that,
All right.
take this.
Here, Ricardo.
Hasta luego.
Have fun.
Oh, came right out of there.
Pretty easy, huh?
Oh, yeah.
DEET's been the mainstay of insect protection for many years. We like to recommend a 30% or less for children, and choose one again with a base in it that won't allow the DEET to absorb into the skin as much as the old-fashioned remedies.
Speaking of ticks. We've got the tweezers here. This looks like
Yes. The DEET doesn't keep the tick off. Sometimes you have to remove it.
one gets on you.
If one gets on, you need to get it off. And the way you take it off is to take a fine pair of tweezers, grab that tick right where it enters the skin on either side of its mouth parts, and then lift straight up, removing it. Try not to crush the body. That might force germs into the skin.
And what about the old hot burnt match trick?
You know, the only trouble is it's so hard catching a child to use it on. You know?
That's right. I never thought
And,
of that.
we're afraid, too, it might explode the tick and drive germs in. So it's a method we like not to use.
You know, this hardware has a lot in common with climbing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. There's a couple of important differences. The first one is this chest harness here. This is critical to the rope walker system.
Yeah.
Keeps the rope right in next to you. And the other difference, which isn't so obvious, is the rope itself.
Yep.
This is a non-stretch or static rope, and climbers use a stretching or dynamic rope.
Oh, yeah.
But there's one thing that both climbers and cavers still use, and that's a non-mechanical emergency knot
Oh, yeah.
called a prusik knot. The prusik knot, if you slide it up, it goes up, and if you pull on it, it doesn't come down.
Oh, so that works just like an ascender.
Exactly the same principle.
Now, what's one of your favorite backcountry secrets?
Well, it's no secret. It's what you see here, diversity. And beyond that is planning.
Okay, well, I'm at home getting ready for my Smokies trip. What should I be planning and what should I be doing?
Well, make a list of your favorites and run down to the corner market and pick up a few things.
Something like this?
There you go. But once you get home, you want to make sure to remove all your packaging because that takes up a lot of unnecessary space and weight in your pack. For instance, these beans here, rather than take a can of beans,
Right.
I bought some dried beans and repackaged them in a smaller bag and labeled them.
Yeah, and you've even said how much water you add to
Yeah, put your
rehydrate?
cooking instructions with the food, with the bag, and
Right
there you
there.
go. There's the rehydrated dried black beans. And I'm doing the same thing over here with some dried strawberries.
Okay.
Here's a pint of fresh strawberries. Here's a pint of dried strawberries, so you can see how much space you save.
Oh, yeah.
And here's some rehydrating strawberries.
Now, this almost looks like, is this salsa right here?
That's rehydrated dried salsa. And I did that myself in the food dehydrator, and
Right
there's
here.
salsa leather right there.
Amazing. So you just add water to this, huh?
Yeah, just a little hot water. It takes about 10 minutes.
Hi, I'm John Viehman at Joshua Tree National Monument. Join me as we get vertical on Trailside.